I'm at a loss because I was in the middle of this workout. When I found out that John died. And he's one of those guys. They don't make them like that. And he's one of those people who believed in me. And I know bodybuilding seems so pointless right now, but I know he'd want me to finish this workout, so this one's for you, John. It's gonna be fun. Booyah. Oh man, I started bodybuilding in 2016, back in right after I got married to my wife. I was at the gym and this guy came up to me and said, "Hey, do you ever compete?" And I said, "No." I was a football player my whole life, and I was really into weightlifting and powerlifting and things like that, and I kind of had built this dense frame. And someone said, "Hey, well, maybe you should think about it." And I was like, "Isn't that when they put on trunks and get on stage and pose around?" And I was like, "All right, yeah, maybe I'll give it a try." And I actually got put in touch with a really good coach. I really was blessed with Chris Tuttle as my first coach. He's really the man, and he really showed me the way. And I did my first diet, the nutrition. I had never done anything like that in my life before, and that was a major wake-up call. I didn't understand how much food played a part in changing your physique, but I learned a lot under Chris. I did my first prep for fun and did the East Coast Cup in Connecticut, and I got fourth on my first try in light heavyweights. I was probably like 194 or so on stage, but that prep I was cheating on it constantly. I was substituting meals for like frozen yogurt and things like that, and then killing myself on cardio trying to make up for it. Basically just went about it all the wrong way, and I hated every minute of it. And then I got on stage, and I reached that moment where I had come to a pinnacle of a journey point, and I had told myself I never wanted to do that again. But then when I had that moment on stage and I actually reached that accomplishment, I was like, man, this is an awesome feeling. I kind of like this. And I kind of got the bug, is what I would call it.
Would you say you have a competitive side?
Oh, I'm definitely highly competitive. I was very competitive in academics, at school. And I was on championship football teams. I was doing individual sports like wrestling and things like that. So I am highly competitive. I like being stronger. If someone does one rep, I want to do two, type of thing. It's just kind of in my nature. Bodybuilding is a subjective sport. It's not whoever can lift the most. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and it's one of these things where it's who can follow the meal plan, who can get in the best shape, and then there's a little bit of a draw of luck to it too. So it's an interesting sport. I like the thing I like the most about it is that when so many things in our life are outside of our control, this is something that you can control. The nutrition, the weightlifting, the amount of work that you put into something, it's just on you. It's not on your friend, it's not on your teammate, it's not on your coach, it's you. It comes down to you and the mental fortitude that you can build. And that's kind of why I like it. I see it as like almost a spiritual challenge in a way.
Spiritual challenge in the sense of? In
the sense that to put your mind under so much control and discipline is a spiritual journey, I think, in a way.
To unify the mind.
Yes.
Like it's your meditation.
Right, it is. And as you progress through a prep, you reach these levels of mental clarity that you didn't have before. It's almost like other parts of your life, the things that didn't matter get kind of melted away. And you're left with like a more refined steel. Things that normally hog your time or get you down, or you don't realize how much time you spend on Instagram wasting time, or you're not pursuing goals or things like that, or watching TV or too much Netflix. at least for me, I start losing interest in those things, and everything starts to boil, and the dross falls away, and I think of the things that really, really matter. And that's when I really get into my writing projects and poetry and so I actually got into writing because I was interested in role playing as a teenager. I got into that online, and I was into writing online with other people
Oh, that's cool.
and telling collaborative stories with people. And I really began to realize that life is a story, and you write it with your daily actions. And there's like lines in Gladiator, what we do in life echoes in eternity, and things like that. I was a history major on top of an English major. So I studied a lot of Greek history and Roman history, and I read a lot of that philosophy. I went to a Christian college. I studied I studied Old Testament, New Testament, Hebrew, Greek, and I got into historical fiction writing out of my love of history, and I would study these stories that humanity went through, and these great deeds that people would do, and just be blown away by what the human being is capable of. And that carried through into I wanted to tell stories of characters that we don't ever hear about in history but could have happened, right?
Yeah.
And I like to imagine myself like if I was a warrior back then, or if I was a knight, or if I was, a man in Egypt trying to raise food for his family or something of that nature, and tell his story, the everyman story. And I took that with me into college. I studied English and history, and then I got a master's in professional and creative writing. And poetry was actually something I never really dabbled in until I got there. The thing about poetry versus fiction writing, I'll work on a manuscript for months, and it'll be 80,000 words, and it's a lot of filler, it sometimes feels like. But poetry is almost like prep, because it melts everything down to the basic fundamental elements, and you pick your words very carefully. You don't write sentence and sentence and sentence, a paragraph. You bring it right down to the essence, the real essence. Yeah. I have a 6,000 page Webster's that I leave open sometimes when I'm in a writing project, and I'll just flip through and I'll pick 5 words and I'll use them in whatever manuscript I'm working on, just for fun.
That is the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's a nice little challenge.
So you were submitting recently?
I submitted some poetry recently to Connecticut poetry contest for Connecticut poets that have never been published before in poetry there recently, and I have some manuscripts that I've been pitching around. But I'm not in a rush. It took me 10 years to become a decent bodybuilder to the point where I have a shot at a pro card. I look at it the same way with writing. I'm not in an extreme rush to rush a manuscript out there. I want it to be the one I want.
The solid.
So that's I'm kind of looking at it in my 30s to 40s, because I just turned 30. I think this is going to be my decade of writing, where I'm really going to immerse myself and try to get the manuscripts out there. Yeah, right to live. Yeah, that is a key factor for me. But also, when I think in terms of bodybuilding, it's fleeting. The body is going to fall away. We see bodybuilders dying, which is something I think about. I think about mortality a lot. And when you have this notion that we are all mortal, and you have that at the forefront of your mind pretty regularly, it gives an urgency to life. And the thing that I feel a great urgency to do is to leave the written word behind, because Justin O'Donnell is going to pass away, but the words that I leave behind will be on a shelf someday for my little girl to read. And that's kind of the thing that pushes me toward that as my next goal.
It seems to me I didn't know the good days when I had them. Capri Sun in the summer, when the only monsters I cared about were Pokemon and not my thoughts or the people on TV. I can't trust them, and I can't trust me. It's in the dark and quiet, like a lake. You want to come up for a breath, but there's nothing for me but you. You, magical you. Too young to know that this is it. Your magic days. It'll be different for you, you'll see. And I want you to know I'd sink 1,000 times just so you can breathe.
Existentially, when I experienced death for the first time. I was about 8 years old. My mom's brother passed away.
Yeah.
And then it was in my mind, the impermanence of life.
Yeah.
Like your poem, impermanence. Yeah. And all we have is time.
Similar to you, when I was 6 years old, my uncle, I woke up one day and he had died in a car accident. And that was my first experience with death. I think that is the thing that gives most of us our concept that time is limited as young people. And the thing is, there are so many distractions in our life, and our materialistic American society does an excellent job, for better or for worse, distracting us from the very fatal truth that time is not on our side, and we are but vapors that are going to pass away sometime. So my urgency and almost the therapy or the coping mechanism that helps me deal with that crisis, because we all deal with that crisis of death, is that if I write, I can leave something behind, and then it makes living worthwhile. And you can write words, you can write great deeds with what you do, you can write relationships that last long after you're gone. So it's not just writing, it's not just deeds that you do, it's not championships, it's all those things that we do every day in our day-to-day life that we write our story.
A lot of what you say is very Buddhist.
Yeah.
So is there a Buddhist influence? Because Buddha was all about impermanence.
I've studied Buddhism, but I think there's a lot of teachings of Christ that are very similar to Buddhism, and at least
very similar.
At least my understanding of Jesus Christ and how I've learned how my Christian walk has changed so much from a very fundamental and works based approach to a relationship based approach, which I was telling Ruth the other day. We were watching something on TV about Buddhism and something that the monks were doing, and I was like, well, I agree with that. There's definitely some truth there. Yeah. I think there's a lot of truth. These ancient religions, there's a lot of truth that they found. Yeah, no man's an island. The way a person looked at the world 500 years ago is going to be different today, but I think that there are universal wisdoms that come through regardless, and especially in literature, you can go all the way back in time. Universal truths always carry through. I mean, Native Americans worshipped a creator. We were all connected, and we were talking about this today too. Is like, even for instance, reincarnation. If you don't believe in it, but like, I feel a connection to people in the past. Like when I read about Napoleon or Hannibal or Julius Caesar, like these great men that did things, I sometimes feel like I could have been them in a way. And same thing when I hear a bagpipe playing. I've been to Ireland once, but there's like, why does this Irish guy feel his heart stir and he feels like crying when he hears a bagpipe playing? Yeah. When they were playing those when they were fighting the British for their independence, maybe it's in my blood, So I just believe in the romance of humanity, and I know that there's a trend these days towards scientism and trust the science and all this stuff, but I am a romantic at heart, so I'm going to let that carry through in my writing and hopefully leave behind something that is memorable.
So the impermanence of the physique, you still see the preciousness of it at the moment.
At the moment, I feel like I have to, like, I think back to 2016 when I was cheating on my diet, and I placed and I barely tried, and this guy was backstage. He had competed 30 times his whole life, had never placed ever, and he was just so happy to be there. And I think of him sometimes, I'm like, who am I to waste my God-given gift that I'm pretty good at this? Like, let's see how far I can take it for that guy. And I felt like, this is something I'm good at. I can build an audience. I can touch people's lives through this. Yeah. They're kind of my tribe of people. And I felt like it would have been a bad call on my part not to pursue it and see how far I could take it. And bodybuilding is one of these things where you can feel like a fraud at it, just like with writing. Like, am I big enough? Am I good enough? Is my writing interesting enough? I'll post a picture that I take in the mirror. It'll get 600 likes, and then I'll work on on a short story poem for a week and slave over it, and it'll get 30 likes.
Yep.
And then I'm like, am I really that bad? Or no, it's just different audiences, but at the same time, it's the same mental struggle that we deal with when we're pursuing things like. I want to be known as more than just a big dude that eats chicken and rice. I've worked too hard in other areas of my life to become a whole well-rounded person.
Well,
and I have other interests and passions that I want to have intertwined with other people and have those relationships, you know.
In this long run called life among our field of vapors, where we run like dogs and pass by mountains, you encounter those who you never saw coming, who leave their mark, who spark your soul, who fires the light that gets in your eyes, so that no matter how dark, you can feel the flash of them like lightning in the sky, or summer shine against your skin. An electric reminder, even when it feels like the rain will never stop.
I'm actually a really big John Meadows guy. That is the man who really wore off on me the most. And the things that he did for the industry, he was such a net positive, touched so many lives. Training principles that really helped me, because I couldn't train like Dorian and Ronnie and look like them. When I started training like John, he helped me so much. He wrote my whole plan for this year to approach nationals. In the last text I sent him in July, I said, hey, do you want me to continue this program up to nationals? And he said, yes, you were going to light it up on stage at nationals. And then he died the next day. And so I've carried that with me every step of this way. I'm doing this show for him. Yeah, that I cried in the gym. I put a video up that day, and I knew he would want me to finish the workout, but I did. And like I said, if I could leave any type of legacy on the sport, even if I don't compete again after tomorrow, even if I could touch people the way John did, that would make it more worthwhile than any trophy, any pro card, anything like that. It's just, he really set the standard for, I think, the goodness that you can do in the sport and help and touch so many people in so many ways, and ways beyond just nutrition and training, but in just being a good-hearted person that really cares about them and wants to see people succeed. That's the kind of person I want to be in the sport, and that's the kind of legacy I want to leave behind in the sport. So I think about John often, and I hope I make him smile tomorrow.